could never go to the toilet without, like, it's a freaking party in the toilet, right? They just follow you in, and they're asking me about their freaking homework or whatever in the toilet. But I would always lock the door when I had my period, I think, or when I was changing my tampons or as whatever. Maybe because when they were really young, I don't know, I guess, exactly the opposite of what I'm trying to teach them. I just thought maybe it's too much for them or whatever. I don't know. But I found myself, beyond their 2 or 3 years old to now they're 8 or 9. And I'm still haven't really said anything about it. And I think that I never said anything. The way that what I would tell myself anyway, and I still think it's fair, is that they've got years to think about that shit. Like, you can get away with that for now. Don't worry about it. I think I just wanted to maintain that for them. Innocence is the wrong word, but for want of a better phrase, just give them that kind of freedom and innocence. Anyway, so now, unlike most topics in my life with them, I don't have any run-up. I've got 0 run-up. And shit, this thing could happen. I got scared. My sister was like, it could happen any day. And I know some girls where it happened when they're 9. And I'm just like, oh, fuck. So I sit them, I know that at some point I'm going to sit them down. And we happened to be watching a TV show, and I can't remember what, but it was slightly adult, but I've always let them kind of watch TV that's probably a bit too mature, but comedy-wise particularly. And something had happened, there was a bit of banter on the TV, and it was about sex. And I just found this moment. I thought, okay, this is the moment. And it's like 8:45, so it's nearly bedtime as well. We'll alert later, that's not a good time to have these conversations. And I just launched into this conversation. And I start with the science of it all. And they are engaged. They are on it. And I'm like, this is going well. And I knew that would be how I'd get in. This is science. I'm proud to say they're both very bright girls, and they're very into school and learning. So I'm like, the egg and... Oh, no, I think I went slightly birds and bees first. And they're there. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, so if you don't have a baby, then what happens is your uterus lining, and then there'll be blood. I'm going through this thing, and then there'll be blood. And I think I said it like that. And before this point, there's questions. There's questions, loads of questions. I'm like, I'm a freaking great mum. This is going well. And then, as I say, there's blood, and I'm like, and it's blood. But it doesn't hurt in the way that, we think about blood when you get cut. It doesn't mean like that. There can be some pain. And then before I knew it, the old one, Mia, she is bawling. She is just crying. And I'm like, you don't have to cry, Mia. You don't have to cry. And I just had this, what I now know was pretty hard. It was quite this, you don't have to cry. There's nothing, you don't have to worry. And she's just, like that crying. And I'm like, no, really, you really don't need to cry. Don't worry about it. There's nothing to be scared of. And she's just still crying. And she's like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I'm holding her there in this conversation. And then I have this moment, this penny drop moment, where I'm like, I am the trauma. I am giving her the trauma now by keeping her in this conversation when she is literally saying, I want to go upstairs. I want to go to bed, right? I'd messed this conversation up so much in that moment that my daughter was actually asking me to go to bed. So I've gone, okay, go upstairs. And then Tiggy, she's left, and I'm like, okay, I start to carry on the conversation with the younger one. And she's like, I want to go upstairs as well. I want to go upstairs as well, like this. I'm like, you don't... And they have this thing. The younger one definitely idolizes, but would never admit that she idolizes the older one. So I have this moment, she copies her. So I have this moment where I'm like, you don't have to just do what Mia does. You can stay here. You were having this conversation with Tig. She's just a bit like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm like, why? I just don't want to. And I kind of push her, and I'm like, but why don't you want to? And she just kind of blurts out and says, bear in mind they are cats and dogs, these two. And then she says, because she's my sister and I love her and I love her and I want to be with her. And I was just like, I was taken aback, and I was just like, oh my MG. And I was like, okay, go upstairs. And then that was it. That was a conversation. And then obviously I went into work the next day, and I was like, oh my God, listen to what I did. Listen to how I messed it up. And it was just this funny anecdote where I was the trauma, and it was all going so well. And then I just held them in this space until I realized that, oh no, you've got to let them go. And then we left it at that. And I think that what that did is that just served to break the ice for the time when we had the conversation after, which actually I did in two parts. I did it separately. So, the older one, neither of them had their periods yet, but that conversation went that much, went that much better, and it was broken down. It was all about let's do it when you're on your own, which is very rare. They're always together. And I did it when my other daughter was at sleepover and so, and it just gave us the space to do everything. And she was then able to ask the questions rather than be the dynamic between the two of them, which is what that was. That first conversation, they're looking at each other and thinking, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Oh my God, I want to go with you. Oh my God, I love you. Which, she has never said since, by the way.
So after having those conversations with your daughters, do you find that you're more open now about when you have your period and how you're feeling?
Yeah. I definitely am. I still do a closed door. Like I still keep the door closed. And actually sitting here, I'm thinking maybe I don't need to do that anymore. But I think there are certain things that I want my own privacy for. I'm sitting here thinking, it'd be good education for them to see how you do things. And perhaps when those moments come and they really need to be more practical, then I will be there. But actually, I don't think everything I do has to be a lesson for them, because I'm my own person. And so, I don't really want the door open when I'm changing my tampon, or I don't, there are certain things that I kind of think I want to reserve my privacy for. But I'll certainly, it's other than that, it's all there. It's all there. If I am having, I haven't actually said to them, I think I'm in a bad mood because of my period. I tend to just say I'm in a bad mood if I'm in a bad mood. So it's not necessarily attached to that. And maybe that's a conscious thing, I don't know. But often because I've learned as a parent, you have to show them how you feel, because we are a dynamic. If I'm telling you to go to bed because I'm tired, I know you're not tired. It's 9:30, it's past your bedtime, but I know you're not tired. But if I tell you, do you know what, I need you guys to go to bed. I know you might not be tired, but A, it's your bedtime, but B, I'm tired and I need my own time. I need you to go upstairs so I can have my own time, because that makes me happier, and then I can do what I need to do. So I always try to address moods like that. I'm going to share it with you so that because then that's up to you to do something about that, or not.
It sounds like you have been more open, and perhaps maybe things will continue to shift as they get older. I just want to shift a little bit towards your business and the work that you do to create inclusivity within media organizations.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, I had a good just under 20 years, maybe 18 years in the media industry. And I fell into it like a lot of people do, I think. And I was on the commercial side of things. I was selling advertising and running teams. And by the time I left the last organization that I was in, I was running a team. Well, I was running a team of about, 30 odd people. And before that, maybe a team of a department of like 50 or so people. And I was the head of digital advertising. So in there, you've got different teams doing different things, not just salespeople, operations, client services, things like that. And what I started to realize was that, yes, I could still sell. Yes, I was a technical salesperson, and I still loved that part of the job, getting out there. But actually, where I've gathered all my energy from was the fact that we had a great culture. We had a great team culture within our team, which I almost felt, not in an arrogant way, I felt that, and our experience told us that people gravitated to our department. So, people wanted to work for us. People were happy to work for us when we weren't there. People, they respected us. They enjoyed their time there. They learnt. And there was a a palpable energy that belonged to us and our identity. At the time, I just thought that was what team was. That was the definition of team. But as I started to think about kind of exiting the business and thinking about what to do next, I started to realize and see that not all teams operated like that. And not all teams put energy into building a culture where we were all part of what made it really work. And there was less hierarchy. Yes, I was the boss, but I need you. You're the person I'm helping to deliver here, and I'm just here to facilitate that. What I started to notice in my last couple of years working in media was that I had a growing feeling inside of me about the kind of unfairness of it all. The fact I used to think, so I was a step away from the board, and I was literally working for 5 white male middle-class men who were on the board, who had actually been working together for 15 years plus. And I don't think I ever was a woman who would pull out the feminist card at all. Not really. I would never think, but it's because they're white men and I'm a woman of color. I wouldn't think that. I would think this is what the freaking world is like, and you need to work your ass off if you want to get up there. And you know what? You can't complain about these people. You just have to be good enough to get a seat on there. This is the reality. And as I started to get more and more into it, I started to think, actually, this is the reality, but it shouldn't be like this. And there are people like me or others who literally can't get in because actually it's closed. And that just was growing inside me as a bit of resentment, actually. And then I started to realize that's not my problem. That's not resentment. That's just me observing. So what we did with Project 23 is we launched a company that understood the value of culture when it comes to performance. Because if people are happy, then funnily enough, they'll do great work. But also the lack of diversity and the lack of inclusion of that diversity within the media industry became the other thing. So as we are culture experts, but actually our passion is about building inclusive cultures and getting the value and the equity of diversity to be seen at CEO level. The more funny, if we're an industry that's been desperate for innovation for years and years and years, and it's the answer to so much, then how come we don't realize that diversity is the answer, not the problem? So that's effectively what we do. We go around and we help our organizations understand that this is an answer to some of their strategies rather than something that the HR department has to do, or the BAME group on the side that is really passionate about this stuff. This should be part of your core corporate strategy.
Amazing. I think it's so needed. I know from my background in media, it's very, on a certain level, it's quite diverse. And then as you get more senior, I know that as I got more senior in advertising media, I would look around and I would think, there's no one really that looks like me. So yeah. I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really, really positive.
Thank you.
I just want to round off the conversation by asking you, if listeners take one thing away from all the brilliant things that we've talked about, what would you want that to be?
It's a great question. I think for me, like almost everything, it's that, and this goes for some of the work that we do in the main, actually, at its core. It is about talking about a topic and really listening to what comes back to you. The fact that today we are in a world where I can be invited onto a podcast which is just about periods is incredible. It's incredible. And I think the reason why it's so important is because these conversations need to happen. So I think if there's one thing that I want everyone to consider is that you just have to start having the conversation to begin with. And if you've started already, then we can push the conversation a little bit more too, because there tends to be, for most of us, I think there tends to be a barrier that we tend to not go past. So for me, it was, maybe it's talking about moods with the